Hello everyone, welcome to the Midwestern Reloader channel. My name is Walker, and today I will be demonstrating how to load 243 Winchester. Now, I love 243 because you can shoot anything from groundhogs, rock chucks, all the way up to deer-sized game, antelope, and there is accounts of people out there taking elk with them. I personally wouldn't recommend it, but teach his own. So what I will be working with here is the 90 grain Hornady ELD-X, and I will be using Ramshot Hunter. Now, Ramshot Hunter is a spherical powder, as you can see. And some people's for spherical powders, now I haven't noticed a difference, prefer to use Magnum primers. I have had no problems using standard large rifle primers. Some people will use Magnum primers for ball powders just because they burn just a little bit hotter, and with ball powders being more loose in the casing, you want a more consistent ignition of the powder. Also, if you're hunting in extreme cold, say if you're constantly hunting in, say, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, use a Magnum primer. Now, I haven't tested these in the cold. I do currently have 90 grain Nosler ballistic tips loaded with the same powder, same primer, shooting sub 1 MOA groups at 100 yards. So that's why I want to compare the ELD-X to the Nosler. These are a boat tail tipped bullet. And you will notice on the box, I have to find it here. Right there. These will stabilize in a 1 in 10 twist barrel. Now, the particular gun I am working with has a 1 in 9 1/4 twist, so I don't have to worry about it. So, according to Hodgson's website, now, I am actually using data for the 87 grain Hornady VMAX. But if you look at the Hornady manual, both the VMAX and the 90 grain ELD-X are on the same page and use the same charge weights. But I had to go to Hodgson's website for this, and they had the 87 grain Nosler ballistic tip listed, and they have a starting charge of 41.8 grains and a max charge of 46.4. Now, if you're wondering where Ramshot Hunter is on the burn rate chart, so here's Ramshot Hunter, similar to IMR 4831, Vinavori N61, and same around Reloader 19. So the first steps is to always inspect your brass. Now, these are all once fired casings anyhow, factory ammunition. I don't have to worry too much. Now, I personally don't have a tumbler, but I have a friend enough that was kind enough to tumble these for me. They are a lot shinier. See if I can find one that hasn't been tumbled. No, these aren't always, this isn't exactly the greatest example, but here's one that's been tumbled. Here's one that's been fired. You can see the neck's just a little dirtier. And you don't have to tumble your brass, but keeping it nice and clean keeps your gun nice and clean. So, I have not prepped any of these yet, so I will go through how to set up a sizing die to resize, deprime, get that old primer out of there. And then we will get out the calipers, measure them, because we may have to trim them. Now, I did go ahead and write down that the max case length you can have is 2.045 inches. So if it is bigger than that, we will trim them to 2.035 inches. And with this particular bullet, you have a cartridge overall length of 2.64. We'll get more in depth on that later on. Now, I'm sure as you noticed before, I am using the Hornady custom grade dies. And in this set, you get your bullet seating die. And this is your resizing and depriming die. And Hornady is also nice enough to include the instruction book, which if you've never set up a set of dies, that'll tell you how to do it, as well as a spare ring that is for your bullet seating die and an extra decapping pin. So we will go ahead and get the camera pointed at the press, and I will show you how to set up that die. Okay folks, here we are at the press. Now, most single stage presses are generally designed the same. O-style press, big opening, 7/14 threads, so it'll accept any dies from any of the major brands. Now this is an RCBS Rock Chucker 4? Yes, 4. Now when I first started reloading, I used strictly RCBS dies. But what's nice about these Hornady dies is for every set of dies you buy, you can go on their website and fill out a form. They call it Hornady Get Loaded. You can get 100 free bullets. Now they do only have select bullets you can select. And when I bought these set of dies, I actually did. I selected, they did have a 100 grain 6mm or 243 boat tail spire point. That's a great deer round. Now, I'm hoping these perform the same. I'd love to see what they do, but unfortunately for deer season this year, I'm using my 270, not the 243. But anyway, so what you gotta do is all your dies will have a lock ring. So make sure this lock ring is nice and loose. Now if you're buying used dies, they might be locked down already. If you buy new, you don't gotta worry about it. What you wanna do, you wanna screw this in here. Now, big thing too, is make sure you are using the appropriate size shell holder. Now, if you're using Hornady dies, they recommend using a Hornady case holder. I only have an RCBS number 3. The number 3 will cover your 243, your 308, your 30-06, your 270, your 280. Anything in that 30-06, case head family, it'll work. I have never once had an issue using my Hornady dies with an RCBS shell holder. So what you gotta do is you bring your ram all the way up. And once it's all the way up, you take your die and you screw it down until you feel it touch. Ooh, before I forget, big thing too, with your full-size resizer and deprimer die. For your deprimer pin, basically straight across the board on all the dies. You'll see that pin right there. They say to stick it out about 3/16 of an inch. You might have to play with it a little bit. You don't have to measure it with your calipers, just stick it out a little bit. It'll work just fine. So now you can screw it back in. Until you feel it touch. Okay, right there, it touches. Now, I believe in the Hornady book as well as all the other ones, as soon as it touches, you give it about a quarter turn. Quarter to half a turn, I do believe. I am double checking. Okay, with the Hornady dies, it does say to adjust the full length size die, follow these steps. Raise the press ram to highest position, thread the full length die into the press until base touches shell holder head. Tighten the lock ring against the press and tighten the set screw with the Allen wrench. That's another thing, I didn't have it, actually this actually might be the one. When you buy a set of Hornady dies too, they come with an Allen wrench. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my press, turn it just ever so slightly. What you're looking to feel is the cam over of the ram. You'll feel it touch, and then you just a little bit more. Back it off just a smidge. Tighten that down. Take your Allen wrench. And tighten that set screw. Now, this is a problem I always seem to have with these after I tighten that lock ring down. I just like to get stuck just a little bit. But now you have your die. Oh, see, that happens sometimes too. Lock ring loosened up on me. So it's loose out of there. Try and hold it as still as possible so you don't lose your adjustment. There, I just felt it lock. There. Oh, lost my cam over. So in this case, what I will do is I will loosen that, screw the die in just a little bit more, and tighten her back up. Tighten the die up. Still don't have it. What I will do is right about there. Perfect. Very slight cam over. Now the next step, after you get your die set up, is to lube your cases. Now there's all kinds of products out there. I have two in particular I have the RCBS case slick, which came with the particular kit I bought. I bought a kit. I didn't buy everything individually. Saves you money in the long run, just buy a kit. And if you can buy it used or have a relative that's looking to get rid of it, even better. What I have found works best for me is Unique Case Lube by Hornady. Now this is a paste lube. They also have an aerosol lube called One Shot. I have not tried it, but I've heard good things about it. I just use this stuff because I've had this going for about 2.5, almost 3 years. I still got plenty. Now there's another one out there that's very similar to this called Imperial Sizing Wax. It does the same thing. But what I like to do, I take my can, or my container, I wipe a little bit on my finger. What I do is I actually rub it into the palm of my hand. So you get enough to where you can just feel, it almost feels like you put on too much lotion. Probably can't really see it, but it's there. So what I like to do is I take my cases, and I just rub them in my hands. And if you feel them, they're nice and slippery now. Now you gotta be careful not to put on too much resizing lube, or you will get dents, usually in the shoulder, sometimes the body, but I've made the mistake of getting it in the shoulder. Okay, now that we got all of our cases lubed, the big thing, making sure you get down in that case neck. So what I like to do, grab your standard Q-tip, put just a little bit on there, get it in there, and just like that, you have just enough lube in there to where you won't get a case stuck. You get a case stuck and life's hell. Now, the other way I found you can do it, as you can kind of see maybe by my lube, all them little rings in there, as I have found, just go like this, stick it in there a little bit, take your Q-tip that you had before, wipe all that excess off the neck. Now you don't get any lube dents. And what you should be able to do though, put it in the press, grab the handle, hammer home. As you can see, wherever it went, primer popped out. If it doesn't pop out, adjust your decapping pin a little bit more down. But there, we have a resized and deprimed 243. And I do not see any dents on the shoulder from too much lube. And all you gotta do, do the rest of them like that. I'll show you one more. We'll do it this way. A little bit, that's all it takes. What's nice about the Hornady dies is the expander ball in the die itself is football shaped. It's not round like some of the other dies, so it glides nice and smooth. But I will get these other 6 resized and deprimed, and we'll be back for trimming and priming. Okay folks, now we're ready to measure our pieces of brass and see if we have to trim them. Now, what you can also do is you'll notice, you look in that primer pocket, you can see it's pretty dirty. So there's all kinds of different tools out there. Oh, dropping stuff. To do this. Or if you wanted to, you could do a universal decapping die, and then when you tumble your brass, it'll clean it. I got this little tool made by Lee. And it's got a small primer pocket, large primer pocket. And all it does, it goes in here, you twist it around a little bit. And not much of a difference, but gets all that gunk out of there. So, what you gotta do is get yourself a pair of calipers. Now, I went down to Harbor Freight, got these, I think they were 20 bucks maybe. Just a standard 6-inch caliper. You can do dial or you can do digital, it doesn't really matter, as long as you know how to read it. So, if you remember, our max case length could be 2.045 inches. Our trim length is 2.035 inches. So what you do, turn on your caliper, zero it. All you gotta do is measure from there to there. You'll be seeing, let's see, we're getting 2.47 or 0.47, sorry. So, usually if I have one that's too big, just trim them all. That way they're all consistent. So, the way you got to set up your trimmer is, now I have the RCBS, what is it? Trim Pro manual case trimmer. And it comes with all these different little things here. And all these are shell holders. And in the box when you get it, it'll tell you a wide range of cartridges for which shell holder you need. And if you look at on these, each one, let's say RCBS and have a number. So it says RCBS, number 10. This one says number 2. So on and so forth. I think the one we got in there for like your 30-06, your 308, 270s, 243. So number 3 kind of coincides with the shell holder on the press. So what you do, there's a lever off to the left here. Push down on that. Put your case in there just like that. And then you got to find the appropriate size pilot. That way you know that your cutter is cutting straight to your case. And on the face of these, all of them have a little number. So it's being a 243 or a 24 caliber, find the one that says 24. So what you do is you put that right in the end here. There's a little set screw right there. Right there. You find your appropriate size Allen wrench. And I think I misplaced, oh, there it is. And just snug it down. Don't have to go too tight, just enough to keep in place. Alrighty, so, and what you do, push this in. Okay, now I've had this problem in the past. 24 doesn't want to go in after it's sized. So I will do, carefully pull that out, and I will grab the 22. And it'll be just enough to keep the cutter straight, but not too small to where you're cutting everything crooked. So you just loosen that set screw, take that one out. Put that one in and tighten her down. Again, just snug. So, then what I like to do is on the back here, this knurled one is what holds this on the shaft for you to adjust your trim length. This one, in a sense, is almost like a micrometer dial. So you can unscrew this, and you can kind of see it's moving out there. So what I like to do is tighten it all the way up, and I will go 1, 2, about 2 turns, and it gives you a pretty good gap in between here, because to make your trim length shorter so that it takes more off, you screw this in toward the knurled one, and it'll make it so that you take more length off your casing. So what I will do is I will go ahead and snug that down, and you just push this until it makes contact with your case, and then slide this whole thing right up till it stops, and tighten that down. Now, you don't have to do this, but what I did, if I can find where I put it, there it is. Plus side of being a machinist is I made this fancy little gauge, and stamped in it, it says 243 and 308. And what I use this for is this opening is roughly 2.045. So you put the case head there, and look at that. It doesn't slide in, which tells you this case is longer than 2.045. So it needs to be trimmed. You can buy, I do believe Lyman sells them. It's a lot bigger, but it has all different cartridges on it. Same concept. Lets you know if it's got to be trimmed or if you can leave it. But if I have one that's long, I trim all of them, because chances are you're going to run into another one. So what I'm going to do is cut it. Now, I did see a little bit of shavings come off. So, pull it out. And you can see, you might be able to see, shiny. You cut it. It's a little flatter. It doesn't have a chamfer to it anymore. Turn the calipers on, zero them, and take a measurement. So you're getting 2.047 before, we're at 2.045. Now, some people leave that as their limit. I don't. I always go back to trim length. You could also set up your die to where it only bumps the shoulder, 2 to 3 thou. Then the casing growing in length is very minimal. I don't have a headspace comparator to do it, so I just do trim length, measure them, every single time. Here's our shell holder. Popped off. There we go. So now what we gotta do is loosen this and tighten it just a little bit. So if you want to go off the lines, you know this screw is aligned with this one. So we went 1, 2, 3. And the same process. Bring it in. Go until you don't see shavings come off anymore. Pull it out. And you should really be able to see it now, how shiny it is. And measure it again. 2.042. Now, trim length is 2.035. And max length is 2.045. So just for the sake of it, we'll go to 2.04. Now we're not taking too much off the neck. And it saves us just a little bit of time. Turn it just a little bit. Doesn't take much to take off tooth thou. Trim it. Pull it out. And take your measurement. And there we go. 2.04 right on the dot. And then I will trim the rest of them and show you chamfer, deburring, and priming. Alrighty folks, now that we got all of these trimmed, see how it's flat. And I'm not going to bother clean the primer pockets. I'm not too worried about it. Got to deburr and chamfer the case mouth. So you'll notice how it's kind of square. What happens in the trimming is it'll actually push a burr into the case mouth. I don't know if you'll really be able to see it. So what you got to do is make a tool like this. Now, they make all kinds of them. You can have the chamfer and deburr in a case prep center, or you can have the RCBS one like this, which you can see right on it. It says RCBS 17 to 60 caliber. So you can do a lot with just this one little tool. I do believe Lyman offers one. It's a nice handheld. Like it's longer, so instead of being this long, I think it's about 4 inches long or so. Has the same chamfer and deburr attachments, but it allows you to unscrew them and say you got to deal with military brass like 7.62x51 or 5.56 brass that has a crimped primer pocket. You can buy attachments for that tool that will get rid of the crimp in the primer pocket. I have some 223 brass here, but I don't see any of them look like they have a crimped primer pocket on them to show you. We won't worry about it then. This is all 223, not 5.56, so most your 223 brass, you don't get it. It's 5.56 brass and 7.62x51, which is the military equivalent of the 308. Then you got to worry about crimped primer pockets. But in this case, we don't. You can see it's nice and rounded. Usually your giveaway that you got a crimped primer pocket is around the opening for that primer pocket. You'll almost see another little ring in there. And that's just to tell you that there's brass that has been displaced to hold that primer in. But anyway, back to the chamfering and deburring. So what you gotta do, take this little tool, and I always go 1, 2, 3, and it takes away the burr and chamfers the inside. And I always do the same for the outside. 1, 2, and 3. Voila. And another thing I like to do, just because we did put a little bit of lube in the case mouth, so that your primer or your powder doesn't stick in the neck. So I always like to take a Q-tip, and with these smaller calibers it's a little easier. Just get in there, wipe the neck, and you'll see that's mostly residue from tumbling. But what we'll do is we'll take another one. It doesn't really matter what order you do this in, whether you deburr or chamfer first. But then take a Q-tip, get the lube out, and there you can see a little bit of leftover lube in that neck. So that just keeps your powder from sticking to the neck. It's no big deal if it does. It's just an annoyance kind of thing. But there, you can see a pretty good difference. These two have been chamfered and deburred. None of these have. This one hasn't. But you'll notice too, kind of notice it. You can catch it with your fingernail. A little bit of a burr there. You don't want to put that in your gun. And you don't want to put that in your dies. It'll scratch them to hell. So I will finish prepping these and we'll get on to priming. Okay folks, so once you got your cases chamfered and deburred, there's about 3 different ways you can go about priming. On the press, you can buy bench-mounted priming tools. Like just about everybody makes one. Or you can use my favorite tool, which is the RCBS hand prime tool. Now I'll show you both methods on the hand prime and with the press. But I just find the hand prime to be simpler, and I feel like I just seat them primers just a little bit deeper because you want them just below flush. So, to prime with the press, all you gotta do is you put your case in. Now, I don't have a die in up at the top. Take whatever die you have in there out. You lift this up a little bit, and this little piece here, now this comes with 2 different cups. This is the large primer cup, and it just simply unscrews, and you can change it out. And it comes with a small primer cup. But in this case, we need the large one. So what you do is in this cup, you put your primer. Should be able to see it there. And what you do is instead of lifting your ram up, you lower it down. Now, make sure to keep your face clear of case mouth and above where, normally you'd have a die. You can set primers off. I've never done it. Cross my fingers. Then all you do is you push on the handle, pull it out, take a look at it, and feel as if it's just below flush. So I need to push in a little bit more. Don't be afraid to rotate it a little, put it back in, push on a little more. And voila, just like that. Got a fresh prime case. Now, for doing it with the hand tool, it's very simple. Now, RCBS calls us their universal hand prime tool. So you can put anything from like 32 ACP all the way up to 4570 just in this one tool. Now I already have some primers in there from the last little bit of reloading I did, but you just flip this up. It opens the little gate here. Your primers fall down. You look in there, you can see a primer. And this too also has a thing, the push rod, I guess you could say, in there that pushes the primer in. You have a small version and a large version. So in this case, we need the large one. So it just sits in there just like that. And I like using the hand prime tool too because it really allows you to feel if you have a sloppy primer pocket or not. Like if it goes in with like no resistance, I wouldn't trust it. You want it to be nice and firm. So then all you gotta do, put your hand and run her home. And just like that, another piece, prime brass. Show you one more time. Just push it in, squeeze, and you'll feel this bottom out on the body of it, of the prime tool itself. That's how you know you hit where you need to. And voila. Just like that. It's that simple to prime your brass. And this way is a lot quicker. I can do about 5 of these with the hand prime tool. The same amount of time it would take me to do 3. Well, maybe only 2 with the press. It's that simple. So I'll finish priming these and we'll show you measuring powder. Alrighty, so now that we got all these chamfered, deburred, and primed, they're ready for powder. So, you have, in my eyes, 3 different kinds of scales. You have your electronic scales like this. Now this is the one that came with my kit, so it's relatively on the smaller side. I also have a small Frankfurt Arsenal. This is what they call a pocket scale. It's still a digital scale, but it's just a little smaller. Then you also have, I'll get this out of the way, the good old-fashioned, this is the way they did it for years, beam scale. Now, if you want really good, accurate powder measures, use a beam scale. This will usually be about 1/10 of a grain more accurate than what this scale is. Now, I have done a couple different testings with couple different powders, and this scale right about the same. Now, between these 2 scales and that little Frankfurt scale I have, that Frankfurt one is about 1/10 of a grain heavier. It doesn't really matter what powder. Now, for the sake of the video and time and effort, I am going to use my electronic scale, knowing that's pretty close to the beam scale. Now, I like this scale too because the little powder pan on it is nice and deep. So, when it comes to powder too, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do it the old-fashioned way. Use a good old kitchen spoon. Don't tell the wife. You scoop it out of your your 1-pounder, and you just slowly get it in there until you're close. Or another way you can do it is you can do it that way. But then you can add this in the mix. This is what they call a powder trickler. And you fill a little reservoir of powder, and you slowly will turn this, and it'll trickle powder out the end of it. And that way you can hit your grain weight more accurately without going over or under really quick. Another way you can do it, which is the way I like to do it, and these were given to me, these are pretty old, is you'll find these. Lee powder measure kit, 13 powder measures and slide chart, 69 different powders, over 895 loads. Now, this is pretty old, so this won't have a lot of the updated powders. These will be a lot of your older IMR powders, you know, that kind of stuff. So you open it, and in here you have all these little different scoops in here, and you'll look at them, and on each one they have a little number. So this one says 065. So you look at the little chart here, and right now the powder we're looking at is IMR 4350. So if you use that 0.065 dipper or scoop or whatever you want to call it, it'll give you about 14.5 grains. Now with us using a ball powder, not too worried about it. It's more just going to be a get close with it. And then I like using the dippers myself. I'll just put a little bit in them and then just tap on them. I'll show you that a little later. And then your last scale type and the way you can throw powder quickly is an automatic powder charger. Now, I don't have one. I'd love one. But the cheapest ones that are reasonable go for about $300. At least that's for the RCBS one. Now, what that does is it combines your simple digital scale and your powder trickler. And I have a little keypad on them. You type in your grain weight, you hit charge. It spits it out. You dump it in your case. You put it back there. By the time you hit charge again and seat your bullet on your previously charged case, it'll be done spitting powder out. They're fast. They're efficient. But accuracy as far as charge weight on them, it varies on opinion. Some people say because it's a digital scale, now it's a better version of this digital scale, that it still isn't accurate. Some people just prefer the beam scale. They're the most accurate scales you're going to find. But in the sake of this video, I will use my electronic scale just to save us some time. So what we do is we pull up our scale. We turn it on. It's going to light up. Now, always turn it on. Well, you don't always have to. I always do. With the pan on it, that way it automatically zeroes to the weight of the pan. Now, if I take this pan off, you'll see it reads 144.6 grains. Put it back on, 0. Now, you'll notice you can kind of see it here. Yeah, if I tilt it, it's going to go wonky. Once it hits your charge weight, or in this case, back to 0, you'll see a little indicator pointing at stable. That lets you know that it's not reading anything else. It's done reading. So, what we'll do, get our cases in view, is, again, this came with my kit. There's all different versions of these. This is your powder funnel. And this one has interchangeable inserts. So it jumps right from 22 to 27. So in this case, for the 243 being a 24, we'll use the 270 because the 22 is just a little too small. You see the O-ring on there, just pushes in, stays in place. And then your cartridge goes in there, and if you look down in there, you can see the mouth of the case fits in there nice, so that no additional powder runs past. But now if we grab 22, try and put this in there. It's all right, but no, maybe we'll use this one a little bit. I've had it in the past where they fit just a little too tight in there. And I do believe this goes from this particular kit, which I think is the only one they have, goes from only from 17, I think, all the way up to 45, if I remember right. Oh, 40. Now another way you can dump powder too, and I don't have mine set up at the moment. I took it down for the video. Is you can use something like this. You fill the reservoir up with powder. It's got the little dial system on there. Throw lever. You put your powder in here just until you get close. I don't mind using it if I'm, say, loading like 50 rounds. But in this case, we're doing 9. So we really don't got to worry about setting that up. So what we'll do, we take our funnel, put that in there, set that off to the side. Now, if you remember from earlier in the video, our charge rate, or charge weight, starts at 41.8, goes to 46.4. So what we'll do is we'll actually start at 42. We'll do 3 different weights. We'll do 42, 43, and 44. Now, normally I'd recommend going up in half grain increments, so you'd start at 42, then go to 42.5. But I've learned in the past that when it comes to ball powders, they like to give you the best accuracy closer to that max charge weight. Now you can fix that with using Magnum primers for a more consistent burn, or ignition, I should say. But in this case, we're not too worried. So, scale zeroed. I will grab a little lead dipper here. We'll go with this one. We'll see what this one does. We'll try the 141 dipper. So all you gotta do, grab your powder. And slide it to the end. Stick your scoop in there, scoop up some powder. And you can see it's ball powder, so very fine grains of powder. So this scoop might actually be too big. And all I'm gonna do is just start pouring it in there. Oh, look at that. All right, 32.3. What I do is I go grab another scoop. Maybe about a half of a scoop because you don't need a full thing. This is what I do. I'll just tap it. Oh, yeah, see, there we went over. So in this case, all I do. Now what you could do is you could take out that 0.1 of a grain, do your 43 charge. So we're doing 42, 43, 44. What I will do, I will scoop out enough. Scooped out too much. To get to my 42 grains I'm looking for. Now these ball powders like this, if you did have a powder charge, will meter very well out of them. Some of your extruded powders, not so much. Sometimes you gotta get the scale just a little bit to think. With these ball powders, you know, them little granules of powder are very, very light. So it can take a little bit. There we go, 42, right on the nose. Then what you do, come back up to your empty cases, put your funnel on, you grab your powder pan, and you dump it in there. Now, what I like to do is I like to shake it a little, make sure all that powder gets down. See, and that's what I mean. You don't get all that. Sometimes it can be hard to get all that case lube out. I don't know if you can see it. All them little granules of powder stuck in the neck. Yeah, that's no big deal. But some people are picky about it. I've never had too much of an issue. With the ball powders, it can be a little bit more annoying than extruded. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. So I'll finish pouring powder in all these, and then we'll get to seating bullets. Alrighty, so I went ahead and poured all our powder charges. You remember we got 42, 43, 44. So now our next step is to start seating bullets. So that's where this guy comes into play. This is the Hornady bullet seating die. Now what's nice about the Hornady die compared to a lot of the other ones is a lot of the other ones just have an adjustable screw. So just like your plain ordinary screw, you know, goes down in there, you screw it in and adjust it. The Hornady one has a adjustable screw up here, but on the inside has a stem and then this. And what this does is instead of just pushing on the tip of your bullet, it actually surrounds the ogive of the bullet. Now, Hornady does sell other seating stems for the ELD line. This is just their plain standard one. It'll work fine for this. They have ones that have just a little bit tighter tolerance for the ELD-X and the ELD match. As well as I think they make one for the A-tip and possibly the A-max too. But in this case, just a standard one for the ELD-X. So when it comes to setting up your seater die, again, make sure your ring is loose. We'll start it off here. Got everything just a little too close to the press. Let's get that guy out of there. All right. That's what you want to do. You want to take one of your cases. Put it in your shoulder. Run this all the way up. You're going to screw your seating die. Now this kind of goes for all of them. It's kind of a universal thing. You want to screw this in until you feel it right there. Just touch the case mouth. Excuse me. Now, we don't need to apply crimp to these. When it comes to bolt actions, I never really apply crimp anyhow. So the only time crimp really comes into play is your semi-autos, your ARs, you know, your older semi-autos, or bullets like this. Have that little cannular groove on there. And all that's for is just to make sure this bullet has no chance at coming out of that case. Now this particular bullet is a 100 grain 243 or 6mm boat tail spire point. So it has a little boat tail on there. And it's a spire point. So, but in this case, we don't need crimp. So we will actually back the die off just a little bit. And lock our ring down. If you want crimp, what you would do is after it touches, you lower your case down and you give it about a quarter turn in. And that'll, as you seat that bullet, will apply a very slight taper crimp. So we're just tightening this lock ring down. This is another thing I like about the Hornady dies, is this style of lock ring. They call this the Sure lock ring. You know, it's got that nice split in there. A lot of your RCBS dies come with these. It just looks like a standard nut. And it has a brass set screw. Now guess what happens to that brass set screw when you try to tighten it? That's right, it strips out. So I kind of got rid of these, and you can go to any place that sells reloading equipment and find these. Hornady reloading tools, lock ring, 6-pack. You can buy them singly too. I think single they're like $4 or $5. 6-pack I think will run you about $22, $23. But I mean, you get 6 of them. So I mean, I replaced all the lock rings on my my 2 sets of RCBS dies with these. Never look back. Alrighty. So another big thing to do is make sure you back your seating stem out quite a bit. Just so that way when you seat the bullet, you're not seating it too far, pushing that bullet way down into that neck. So now what we got to do is take our bullet here. Now as nice as this, it has that nice boat tail on there, you can kind of see it. So that chamfer really helps that boat tail stay in place. And then what you do is you run your press up. Now I felt a little resistance, so the bullet should have pushed into the case just ever so slightly, not a whole lot. So in that case, we screw our screw in at the top a little bit, snug it down, and run the press up. There. Now you can tell it's just starting to seat in there. Still sticking out quite a bit though. So you're on your seating screw down a little bit more. Turn it up and down. Okay. Now we're kind of getting to that point where it looks like we might be getting close. So we grab our calipers. You remember from the notes from before, our cartridge overall length is 2.64. I'll zoom out a little here. And right now we are at 2.806. So we still got quite a ways to go before we get that there. So again, just gotta tighten our seating stem down quite a bit. Run it up. And we'll take a measurement. And right now we're at 2.735. So about 90-ish thou to go. Turn it in, run her up, pull it out, and measure. Pretty tedious process. Oh, not too tedious. We're at 2.718. Disclaimer, sorry for the junk you see in the background. That's just all my excess gun stuff. All the empty boxes from everything. Alright, we are at 2.688. Now, if you really wanted to, you could get a cartridge overall gauge and test your own rifle. Say you wanted 15 thou jump from the lands, you could do it that way. I've also seen videos where guys will resize a case and they'll put a split right in the neck so that the bullet sits in there just tight enough that you can cycle it, get the bullet to touch the rifling, pull it out, take their measurement, go from there. 0.683. Still gotta go a little bit yet. .654. Now for most people, you know, if you know your gun, you know, instead of doing the cartridge overall length, they'll do them to mag length. It really just depends. You know, on most guns, you can just do them to mag length. They'll still be within usually about 10 thou of what it says in the book. Now we're measuring about 2.646 right there. .641. You know what? We will leave it right there. And just to give you a nice side-to-side comparison, here's the ELD-X, and the purple one is the nozzler ballistic tip. You can kind of see they're pretty close to the same. I've had excellent accuracy with this exact same powder with these nozzlers, so I'm intrigued to see what I can get for performance out of these ELD-X's, because the bullets are fairly similar, but the ballistic tips are just a lot cheaper. I mean, I think I paid 25 for 50 bullets. I think I paid close to, well, 45 for 100. So I guess the Hornadies in the long run are cheaper. But hands down, these nozzlers have just been performing really good. And what I like to do with all of mine is, after I seat the bullet, just so I can, when I put it in the case, I know which one it is. This one has 42 grains of powder. And the next one, I'll write 43. The ones after that, I'll write 44. So I will finish seating bullets, and I'll show you guys the finished results when I'm done. All right, everyone. Well, here is the final result. So these are a 90 grain Hornady ELD-X. These are a 90 grain Nosler ballistic tip. Like I said, both bullets are fairly similar. This one's just a little bit more sleek. But unfortunately, right now it is getting too cold outside to do range videos. So hopefully come spring of the year, we'll get these out to the range. Unless I get a nice warm day during the winter where it's not too bad outside. We'll shoot these at, well, I might only do them at 50. Most time I do my reloads at 100, but I might only do them at 50. See what kind of accuracy we get out of them. But a couple other powders I want to try with them. I bought this for the 100 grain bullets. Winchester 760 ball powder. Now you can use this in pretty much every bullet weight for the 243. I think some of the lighter ones, like when you get into the 60s and 50s, you can't really use it. But this is also a ball powder. This is what they consider a flat ball. Probably kind of hard to see. When you look at them little granules, you can notice they're kind of flat. They're not a nice spherical shape like the ram shot was. So I got that I want to test. And then I had to double check the Hornady book, but I believe I can use this as well. I'll have to get more before I do it. How's is H4350. Actually, matter of fact, you look right there. Oh, that's 100 grain, but it says 243, 40 grains for a 100 grain spear bow tail spire point. Now, I currently am using this in my 270. Oops, sorry. It has been working wonderfully. In my 270, this is what I'm currently shooting. These are 140 grain Sierra tipped Game Kings. I'm actually using my 270 for deer hunting this year. So hopefully I can get one so we can see what these bullets do. With this particular load, I have actually got this gun to shoot sub half MOA. My group measured in at .447. That's the best I've gotten this gun to shoot. Now, I was also given some other Sierra bullets for the 270. These are the 130 grain Game Kings. And I did load some of these a while back and test them. This same bullet, or this bullet with the same charge weight of powder, I'm getting just under an inch. So I'm intrigued to see what these ones will do out to range. These ones I have taken out to 200 yards. And I'm probably sitting at about just over an inch, which is really good. Now, hoping to get more videos done here since it is getting colder outside and I won't have much range time, but hopefully we'll show more loading videos. And fortunately I wasn't able to make a video on these, but I was given some old, what I was told was Hornady bullets. Oops, dropping stuff. Now they say 162 grain FMJs on them. When I measured them, they were averaging about anywhere from 161 to 164. But every little bit of information I looked up on them says they're 163s. Now I loaded these in my 308, and from what I understand, these were originally designed for the 30-06, but same diameter bullet. This is my normal hunting load for my 308. These are 165 Hornady interlock using Varget. Love that powder. These are the FMJs. This one is loaded with accurate 5744. Now, when I shot this load at the range, it looked promising, but unfortunately the front scope ring on my 308 was loose. So like the first two shots were touching, and everything after that was just all over the place. But what I did was I used load data for the 165, 168 range bullet for these. These ones I loaded with Varget. I got 3 different charges I'm going to try. Normally I like to do 5-shot groups, but with these I'm only going to do 3-shot groups, mostly just to save on powder. I loaded up a box worth of these 165s just so I can try and sight in again, make sure everything on that scope is tight. Otherwise I am going to have to either get new scope rings or get some Loctite. Then hopefully in the future too, I can pull out my dad's 243, which I currently have quite a few different loads worked up for. These I got using Winchester 760. I tested these, they did all right, but nothing spectacular. These ones are loaded with Ramshot Hunter. Now, you can't really find information for the Hornady bullet, but I got a hold of Hodgdon because both Hodgdon and Spear listed Ramshot Hunter for powder for their 100 grain bowtail spire point. Now, really the only difference is the Hornady ones have a canneler. The other one's don't. So I got, looks like five different charge rates with that. And then with the last little bit of H 4831 shortcut I had, I loaded up 5 of those. I was using H 4831 shortcut for my 270 using 130 grain SSTs. It liked it a little bit. I loaded up a bunch. It never shot quite what I wanted to. Not compared to these 140s. These 140s are shooting just lights out. But yeah, so hopefully in the spring, or if I get a nice warm day during this winter, I will gladly get these to the range, test them, show you guys the results. But for right now, I'm going to be doing some loading, but not probably a whole lot of range time. Another load I'm going to possibly do in the future is, check that out, 110 grain VMAX and 308 diameter. And I loaded some of these for a buddy of mine using Ramshot Exterminator. Now this is very similar grain wise to the Ramshot Hunter. It's again, it's a ball powder, but it burns a little faster. This is great for your varmint cartridges, like your 22 250s, your 223s, and most of your powders that work for your 223 also work for your 308. So maybe I'll show a video loading some of them, but for right now, it's going to be 243 stuff because there's a couple different loads I want to work on. Maybe load up a bunch of the 130 grain bullets for the 270. Other than that, I don't know what else I got planned. Hopefully some 223 reloading coming soon. We just ordered some 69 grain hollow point boat tail bullets from Rocky Mountain Reloading for $50 with free shipping. You can get 250 bullets. That is an insanely good price. So looking forward to testing that with different powders, and we're going to try Varget, BLC2, possibly CFE 223, probably the Ramshot Exterminator, see what that does. And maybe we'll look at getting some 69 grain Sierra Match Kings just to compare, because from all the reviews I've read, a lot of people, that's what they compare them to. But with that being said, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe.